Hey, you're now listening or watching the Halos in the Infield podcast with your hosts Todd Fox and Fernando the Lone Star Halo, brought to you in part by Noble L Works, just outside of Anaheim Stadium and the Pond, or the Honda Center, where you can get drink specials just by mentioning Halos in the Infield. Also brought to you in part by 714 Tickets. 714 Tickets is a place to go to get 10% off of any ticket purchase just by also mentioning HITI, Halos in the Infield. Now enjoy the show. Hey, welcome into another episode of Halos in the Infield. I am your host, Todd Fox, along with the other host of the show,
the Lone Star Halo.
Yes, we are checking in on another day, another dollar for the Angels. It seems like that's what they're spending nowadays, but we're going to talk about transactions.
Another day, another nickel.
Yeah, a nickel for your thoughts, and why again the free agent pool still has quite a few players that are not elite out there, but are very good additions to certain teams, and we haven't seen too many people pulling the trigger, especially our Angels. But we'll talk about what could be, as we touched on that last episode too, but we'll give a couple more things about that. We'll also talk about Ron Washington. Accountability, something that wasn't heard in the clubhouse last year. Will it be enforced this year, and who needs it the most? And then we'll also talk about, upcoming news for the Angels, some stadium stuff. And I have a curveball for Fernando, a sort of what if question with someone that just left the organization. So with that being said, let's start talking about these transactions and what the bullpen kind of looks like now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go into that. So let's talk a little bit about what's so far been one of the biggest names to be added to the bullpen this year. We got Robert Stevenson signing a 3-year deal with the Angels. I believe, and this is just off the top of my head, I think it was $33 million over 3 years, which, if memory serves correctly, would be the Tyler Anderson contract.
Yeah, but he'll probably pitch. I'll pitch Anderson, but yes.
Well, I mean, we're comparing an apple and an orange. We're comparing a starting pitcher to a bullpen pitcher. Now, the tough thing about Tyler Anderson, and before we flat out call him a bust, he's got 2 more years left under contract. Mm-hmm. And what you can say about Anderson is he at least was reliable in the sense if he went out there every 5th day, but for the Angels, like every 6th or 7th day.
Yeah, he was durable.
And that's something that we haven't been able to say about an Angels pitcher for a long time. Durability.
Yeah, and I will add this to your feather in his cap, and I am hard on him at times, but I will say this. I don't know if you remember last year, Fernando, but there was a few games where it was about make or break, where they had to stay in the wild card, and he did come up in a couple of occasions where I think it was one in Toronto where I thought, man, for sure Toronto's going to wax us. And he pitched his ass off. And so he's had those starts for us where he'll give us a good 6 or 7 innings, 1-run baseball, and it's just up to the team to score some runs. So he does have that in him.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed so far in the Tyler Anderson signing. I'm not going to sit here and defend it. I would have preferred that we didn't make that signing. But what I will say is if we're talking about a guy who is your number 3, your number 4 guy, I think you could do much worse in the middle of the rotation. So I'm a little more excited about Stevenson. I like him out of the bullpen. I think he could really help bridge the gap to Carlos Estevez. Say what you want about the way Estevez ended the season. I don't think it's much of a hot take to say he ended the season in very disappointing fashion. But I will also say I think a lot of his problem was just overusage.
Yeah,
we saw guys like Joe Madden do that in the past where you just run your closer into the ground. And I think that might have been the case with Estevez. This guy was an all-star. This guy was arguably the best closer in baseball for the first half of the season. Mm-hmm. You can say that and not make an ass out of yourself. He was great. He was lights out. He was elite. He was cream of the crop to start the year. There's a reason he got in the all-star game. But for whatever reason, near the all-star break, and especially afterward going to that second half, he was god-awful. You could throw Raleigh Chris out there and gotten the same result.
I think for the most part, though, with Estevez, I have to back off a little bit on that. I don't think he was overused. I think in the actuality in the second half, he was not used enough, and because we weren't putting him in situations where the game was winnable. We would bring him in after 4 or 5 days rest in we're down four. You know what I mean? And so like I think that attributed to his numbers inflating at the end. And then when we actually had him in a closing spot, he hadn't closed for a while. He was getting lit up. I went to a couple of games where I'm like, all right, he's had plenty of rest, but rest isn't, he needs to pitch every other day, or if we have 2 or 3 save opportunities in a row, he needs to do that. And that's where I feel on that.
Let me rephrase that. When I say overused, I mean more he was gassed out. Like
Gotcha.
he had hit his barrier. And, there's certain athletes that as soon as they cross that threshold, that is it. They are done. There is no more gas in the tank. And that's more what I meant by overused.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, maybe he more so overexerted himself. Maybe he just wasn't used to being thrown consistently in those situations. Because this is a guy that I think he was more of a setup man in Colorado.
Yes, he was. Now, let me ask you this too. Do you think part of that Estevez equation came down to confidence, like them not giving him enough confidence, or setting him up to forget the last night's bad performance and restart like a true closer would do? Do you think they didn't have, either he doesn't have that mentality, or they didn't help him to get to that point? Because I felt like he was left on an island a lot last year.
I think it might have been the latter. I think the organization certainly didn't help by letting him, get the monkey off his back, because sometimes that's what it is, right? You overthink it, you overanalyze the matchup. Maybe you don't give this guy the opportunity because he got roughed up. And a lot of baseball players just have that mentality that, hey, it's a new day, it's a new game. I need to, and that's the beauty in baseball, right? Having the ability to move on because, well, it is a new day, it is a new game. In sports like football, you have a whole week to marinate on that loss.
True.
You have the practices, you have the film, and some teams respond the next week. Some of them don't. It's right back to the same thing the next week. But with baseball, a lot of these baseball players, because they've been playing baseball their whole lives, they are programmed to, hey, it's a new day, I need the ball again. And perhaps when you overanalyze it and you think to yourself, hey, Estevez is struggling, and you give the ball to someone else, well, all of a sudden, maybe that lack of confidence starts to kick in because, hey, not only am I not pitching well, my manager doesn't believe in me anymore. Phil Nevin isn't giving me the ball. Perry isn't giving me the ball. Whoever's making that call, maybe it was a Nevin call, maybe it was a Matt Weiss call, maybe it was the front office. Who knows? But clearly somebody in there didn't believe in him, and that trickled down to his athletic ability near the second half, and he just really, really, really struggled down the stretch there.
Yeah, because I believe, like you said, he's being a setup guy mostly in Colorado. He needed that extra boost of confidence from management and coaching to be like, hey, man, you're the man. You got to go out there. You got first time closing. I mean, that's tough. It's not made for everybody. So, yeah, I totally agree with you, bro. Moving back to Stevenson, and now, like you said, getting Matt Moore back. Number one, Stevenson's pretty dominant in Tampa Bay. Really good, reliable pitcher, obviously, for getting that contract. But how do you feel with him and Matt Moore back? Are those your eighth inning guys to Estevez, or do we go with one of the youngsters that came up that had the arm problems but should be good this year?
Well, it's going to depend on which version of Stevenson we get. Are we going to get the guy that was 0 for 3 in Pittsburgh with an over 5 ERA, or are we going to get the guy that went to Tampa and figured it out? Because a lot of people go to places like Tampa Bay or, I'm going to say the D word, the Dodgers, and they revitalize their career as pitchers. These are just organizations that seemingly have pitching factories, right?
Yeah.
The Rays tend to get these no-name guys and resurrect their careers. And, if the Rays, if the Oakland Athletics, and
Atlanta.
the Dodgers are Atlanta, if these kind of teams, if they're looking at your player, that means something, right? I mean, a couple of years ago, we almost traded, it was Rengifo, right, for Jock Peterson and Ross Stripling. And everyone's like, why would the Dodgers want Rengifo? Well, if a team like the Dodgers wants Luis Rengifo, maybe you should take a second look real quick. Why do they want Rengifo? And that's exactly what the Rays are. They did that with Stevenson. They obviously saw something in him with Pittsburgh. They tweaked him around, and lo and behold, he pitched 38 innings for them. And that's a giant sample size for a relief pitcher, especially with those 14 innings he had in Pittsburgh. Like I said, over a 5 ERA. So something changed there. Which version of Stevenson are we going to get?
True. And my thing is this too, as we talked about ad nauseum last year with what how the Angels baby that bullpen. One guy pitches one day and he can't pitch another day, blah, 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 blah. Matt Moore seemed to fit because we had a couple other lefties, but I think this year called upon, he might need to be used a little bit more. My question to you, with these guys coming in, fresh arms, I know you want to treat the guys who will throw 100 miles per hour with a little bit of kid gloves. I get that. But with these veterans who've done it before in other places, bringing them back to Anaheim, bringing Stevenson over, do we pitch them more? Do you think the Angels kind of take those kid gloves off to where, oh, no, 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 you pitched yesterday, you can't pitch today? Do you think they allow them to be more of a traditional bullpen?
That depends. Is it a Rod Washington call or is this a front office call? That's going to tell us an awful lot, and we're going to learn an awful lot within the first 2 weeks of the season. I'm hoping that they don't baby these guys. If there's a save opportunity, you use your closer. If we're getting down to the 7th and 8th inning and the Angels have a lead, you need to really give those guys who you're going to trust in those roles an opportunity. I don't think Matt Moore is the back of a bullpen type of guy. I don't think he's your 7th inning guy. I don't think he's your 8th inning guy. But as of right now, I think he's one of the only lefties in the bullpen. He might actually be the only lefty in the bullpen.
At this point, yes.
Besides Quijada, if he comes back healthy.
But he wouldn't be till what, August or September, maybe?
Yeah, he's pretty late in the year. He had Tommy John, right?
He had Tommy John at the beginning of last year.
So, yeah, I mean, if all goes well, we're talking about August.
Yeah.
Maybe July, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I dare I say for a playoff run when we're 14 games out. But once again, man, this all goes to what are the Angels intending to do this year? There's a lot of talk out there that Artie Moreno doesn't want to make any big signings. Perhaps he's thinking about selling the team. We won't really know. But I think it's primarily this. The organization is trusting these young guys, and I think they're trying to seem clever about all this. Like, hey, we were secretly rebuilding the whole time, guys.
Yeah.
They're going to pretend it's a rebuild if the team is not doing well. And if the team is doing well, they're going to be like, oh, see, I got some article particles, and I figured it out. And Artie's going to be like, we got unfinished business.
Yeah, there's definitely question marks. All if Artie made a personal debut or appearance anywhere, whether it was a function or whatever, I think the perfect outfit for him would be like the Riddler suit, but in red with black question marks, because you don't know what he's gonna do.
Is he gonna spit on you? Is he not?
Yeah.
Should I wear a poncho? Should I not?
One of those rain ponchos you go to the football game with. But
yeah, is Roger Lodge going to give him a big like Bugs Bunny smooch? Is he not?
Yeah, there you go.
You never know.
Or is he?
We'll see if his contract gets re-upped too.
Yeah, that's this month coming up, or February coming up. So mark your calendars right before a special. I think it's mid-February too. So it's right before something we'll announce in a couple days. We will know the fate of one Roger Lodge, which, if I'm a betting man, I bet both my nuts that he's going to be still your propaganda prime minister.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so the propaganda prime minister, would you rather, I mean, obviously we're talking about, would you rather get your nuts stuck on a door or, a sofa cushion, a sofa? Either way, it's going to hurt. But would you rather have Roger Lodge do the sports lodge, or would you rather have Trent Rush do one of those type of shows? You're picking your poison here.
Wow, dude. I'd have to go the latter. I'd have to go with Trent Rush.
Rush.
Because at least he takes phone calls every now and then. Roger,
that's true. Hey, Roger takes phone calls.
And as far as I know, besides him doing UC Santa, I don't know if it's Santa Barbara or Anaheim or whatever college game they put on AM 830, he talks nothing but Ducks and Angels is what that station's supposed to talk about. And Roger tends to go off to Lakers, UCLA
Yeah.
basketball, everything else.
Everyone's favorite team, the Clippers.
Yeah. Let me tell you about my Rams.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So tying it back to what we were saying about the bullpen. Honestly, I don't hate these moves so far to the bullpen, right? I mean, you got
Mhm.
Simber, you have Stevenson, you got Matt Morback, you have Estevez, who hopefully he can have some kind of a resurgence. You still have our boy Benny Joyce.
Yes.
So it has the potential to be a sneaky bullpen, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think last year, look, you know as well as I do, me and you were both on the bullpen last year because of this year before success, and it started good, but then guys like Jaime Vieira came in, and I think the mismanagement of the bullpen more than anything hurt the team last year. I think they had the arms, but then there was injuries, even though they were trying to be, protective. And then it all makes sense when the season's over, when we find out that they have zero, like the local freaking, what's that called? The fitness center, uh not 24-hour fitness, Planet Fitness, half of their they have more better, the worst Planet Fitness is better than the Angels top, workout facility. You know what I mean? So, and their dietitians that get paid $17 an hour or whatever it is are better than the ones the Angels have. That's what we found out. So
That's fair.
yeah. So it's like, it doesn't, or it makes sense. The fact we had all those injuries and we've continued to have injuries, continued to have lazy players. I'm hoping that changes with the Ron Washington factor. And before we get into him real quick, I just want to bring up also, you said, who else signed the other day, a project for the Angels?
So there's been a couple. I know Hunter Dozier
Mm-hmm.
was one of those guys. Miguel Sano, Alfonso Rivas is another one.
Now, here's my question to you real quick. I'm sorry, Fernando,
Sure.
but
No.
with a Dozier signing, I know me and you have been big on Mustakis and Urshela coming back to be those safety blankets for either first base or third base. With them going with Sano as far as at least a minor league on the surface, and then also Dozier, does that take away Urshela and Mus?
It could. And by the way, Rivas was actually designated for assignment. He wasn't the guy. I was looking for Hunter Dozier and Miguel
Okay.
Sano. Now, these are both guys that, hey, 5 years ago, if we signed either one of those, hey, that's awesome, right? We're talking about bringing, the Anthony Rendon of the Nationals. I mean, Hunter Dozier, big piece for the Royals' success. And then Miguel Sano, giant power hitter for the Twins, like 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
But he was injured. He was injured, and Miguel Sano had to go play in the winter leagues, and seemingly has done pretty good there, at least. Well, and I watched a whole video about him and like how he was coming up with the Twins, and his minor league signing with the Twins, and how coveted he was. It was a pretty interesting video, and I think this is your Mike Moustakas signing. I know you and I had kind of talked off air about wanting to get a guy like Mike Moustakas back, more so for the leadership aspect is what I was hoping for. I wonder if the organization asked Mike Moustakas if he was down for like a minor league signing, and my guess is Mike Moustakas just probably isn't interested in that.
Yeah. I mean, who would at this point with all the other players that have come and gone? What happened at the end of the season? I mean,
Yeah, and that's the thing. The Angels really did shoot themselves in the foot.
absolutely. So that'll throw us over to Ron Washington. And it came out earlier this week. Rendon, in that video that was shared on our page and many others, that was, because he rarely does interviews, but it was mostly about the Bible and his beliefs. But he got into his Angels frustrations, and he also said that, the season, the biggest thing that came out of there was the season's too long and it needs to be shortened. And when I first saw that, before I saw the video, I thought it was a joke because, again, if you're to ask any Angel fan if that was a real clip or not, they'd say, no, it's a joke because he's the last one that should be saying it. But he said it. What did you think about that when he first heard it?
I think that down to his core, Anthony Rendon will always be a little bitch. And the reason for that is because how come there are so many hardworking people, mothers and fathers, grandpas, aunts, whatever, you name it. How come all of us have to work so hard for seemingly so little, right? I mean, I guarantee you most middle class people are living in some way, shape, or form, paycheck to paycheck, more or less, right? And here's this dude who is one of the highest paid players in professional sports. Forget baseball, in professional sports. This guy doesn't even play 30% of the season.
Yep.
And he has the nerve the audacity to say the season's too long. We need to shorten that thing up. The only thing that needs to get shortened up is your career, buddy boy. Hit the unemployment line, go to McDonald's, because I guarantee you, if you pulled this crap out of McDonald's, Goodwill, J.C. Penney, hell, go to a Kmart that isn't even open anymore, you're getting fired if you don't show up to work, or if you complain, well, I don't work enough, or I don't get paid enough. Sorry. Because that's essentially what it is. Hey, he's complaining that the season's too long. Oh, we should pay you a little less? No, I don't want that. Because, like you said, what if this was football and they cut him? I guarantee you he wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, he would have got a parting gift and that's it. I mean, it's not like you can go into your work, Fernando. I can go to my work and say, you know what? The work year is too long. I know we have holidays, I know we have weekends, but we need to cut it down. Instead of working about 45 weeks a year, 46 weeks a year, let me work 36, let me work 29. No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's
And I
52,
know,
buddy.
yeah, exactly. So my thing is this, we talked off air about it, and what disgusts me in a way is depending on what side you're on, whether you believe in religion or not, whether you're Christian, whether you're Buddhist, whether no matter what you are. When you try to emphasize your life and lead your life as a public figure, and even as a regular person, if your neighbor says I'm a God-fearing man, but does drugs and there's prostitution, he's not representing what he says he is, right? And Anthony Rendon is representing the Bible. He quotes it. He lives by it, supposedly. But, and I'm not here to judge anybody, but how can you not, when it comes off in the media, in the public, that yes, you're all about God, but would God's people do what you're doing as far as obviously taking advantage of an organization, of a league, and just cashing in, not even caring, do God's people lie and say no habla inglés and do stuff like that? I mean, come on, look, religion, politics shouldn't be in sports. I totally agree with that. But however, you're putting it out there, you're putting yourself out there, you're pushing it on us, and you're already a person in the public who's getting a lot of money, like you stated, and you're not liked because of your attitude, because of your ill play, all of that stuff. It's a recipe for disaster, and it's just not a good look, right, bro?
You look, here's the thing. A lot of people hate Josh Hamilton because of the way his career ended with the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about Josh Hamilton is that he was always remorseful about his drug addiction and overcoming his drug addiction. Say what you want about the way his career ended here with the Angels. He was the one that went to Artie Moreno and admitted he had a relapse, right? Because of the whole thing that happened with his wife.
Yeah.
There's valor in that. He was a human being about it. He admitted his fault about it. And you know what? I can sympathize with somebody like that easier than I can sympathize with an absolute dirtbag like Anthony Rendon. You are a bad person. Mm-hmm. Dare I say a bad person. You can live by the Bible. Hey, I don't spear my religion upon other people. I mean, it might be a surprise for you to know. Hey, I'm a religious person. You know that, but most people probably don't. Because I'm not here to throw how I believe about things. And honestly, I don't think most people should. If you're asked, sure. But the fact of the matter is this. In almost every religion, at least that I can think of, you're taught, hey, be an honest person, be a hardworking person. At its core, that's what religion is, right? Hey,
values and morals.
Exactly. Do good unto the world will do good to you. Whether that's a religious figure that does good to you, whether that's society, whether that's karma, whatever. Everything at its core, more or less, is the same. And what isn't good is, robbing an organization, which is essentially robbing fans, right? Because who's paying Anthony Rendon? At the end of the day, it's some variation of the fans, right? It's your ticket sales, your jersey sales. Well, oh, well, maybe it's the marketing. I mean, what about the TV money? Okay, well, who watches the television? If nobody's watching Angels games, there is no advertising dollars
Yep.
because nobody's going to pay somebody if nobody's watching the product. And hey, that might be a fear this year. Maybe nobody is going to watch the product. But the fact of the matter is this: Anthony Rendon needs to be held accountable. Forget as a baseball player, as a human being and as a person. It is not right to complain that the baseball season is too long when he is willingly signing up for it, signing a contract, and taking the ability for somebody else who wants to be there to play. It's not fair. There's a lot of other people in the minor leagues who for years were suffering, getting paid $12,000 a year, who would have rather had been in that spot, and dare I say, would have worked 100 times harder than Anthony Rendon. You remember Caleb Cowart and how disappointing he was as a prospect? I'd rather have him there than Anthony Rendon 110 out of 100 times, because at least Caleb Cowart wanted to be there.
Yeah, at least he was trying. And that's the thing that's so hard for a lot of fans to swallow is you got the God-given talent, yet you don't care. I mean, look, I know you've watched sports for a long time. A lot of our listeners have as well. Can any of you in the comments or halosintheinfield.com with your questions or comments, like,
don't go on to halosintheinfield.com anymore. I gave my computer a virus doing that.
oh, my bad. I mean, Halos in the Infield podcast. I forget that important podcast part.com. But you can go on there and email us at yahoo.com. Geez, I'm giving a website that doesn't exist away. Halos in the Infield at yahoo.com. Okay.
Way to go. Now we got to buy that domain.
Yes, exactly. So, but what my point is, have you ever known? I mean, I'm sure there's been chronicled athletes who don't like the game or don't represent the organization right, disrespect owners, disrespect managers. It's been all, but they perform, and usually doesn't go this public. But you're talking about now. You can scour YouTube, you can watch any other Rumble, whatever you're on. You can find people who aren't not even close to being Angels fans, but are invested in watching what Rendon does. And you're seeing video after video says one of the worst contracts ever, not just in baseball, but ever in sports. And that's sad, considering all the signings and bad contracts the Angels have had over the years. But Rendon's is, I mean, people used to make fun of Pujols, and like you've said many times when you started that whole I'm sticking up for Pujols because this is what Pujols did, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's apples to oranges compared to what we were getting from Rendon.
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing with Pujols is like, yeah, I understand the contract didn't pan out the way we wanted to, but at the end of the day, he was still more or less a productive part of the team. And okay, even if you make the argument that he wasn't, like, because you don't think that, batting 240, getting 80 plus RBIs is considered productive. Okay, great. At least he was part of the team.
Correct.
Yeah, at least he played. Guys, and Albert Pujols had an excuse. He had plantar fasciitis, which is absolutely one of the most painful things that any athlete could deal with. And guess what? He played through it. I would 100% rather pay someone like Albert Pujols, knowing what I know now about how the end of his Angels career was. I would have 100% rather paid him than Anthony Rendon.
Yeah,
I would take the Josh Hamilton contract, knowing what I know now, over Anthony Rendon.
You take the Gary Matthews Jr. as well. I would too.
At least he played.
Exactly.
At least he didn't make an ass out of himself.
And here's the thing now, because the only thing we know is that Rendon will be back at third base. And for how long? Who knows?
6 games.
Yeah, but here's what we have to do as Angels fans. If you gotta stay positive, you gotta think positive. Well, so what the positive thing would be is this, Fernando. We need to think what he can provide for the Angels lineup going into 2024. And we talked about this off air. I seem to think he would be a good 9-hole hitter if Ron Washington's going to enforce things, because I don't believe he deserves a 3 through 7 spot in the lineup. I don't want him at 1 or 2 either. But in the 9-hole, he walks a lot. He doesn't have the power anymore, apparently. But like you said, Tony Two Bags could be valuable back there if he's hitting doubles and getting on base to restart the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm picking how I want his 15 games this season to be played, I think the number 9 spot actually isn't a horrible idea. Because so you and I had talked this morning, and I had brought up the fact that Ron Washington said he wants to hold players accountable. That includes most likely guys like Rendon. He didn't specifically just single out Rendon, but you would imagine that means the guys like Trout, Rendon. And Trout, I've never really had like the inclination that he doesn't want to play. But you still want to hold him accountable, right? Hey, if you're not producing, I understand you're Mike Trout, but you're getting paid to be Mike Trout. So go be Mike Trout.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference is with Rendon, it's always this he said, she said. It's, oh, I'm hurt. No hablo inglés. Whatever the case is. So I'm all for Ron Washington holding guys like him accountable. So with that being said, if he's going to be a little more productive in the number 9 hole, I don't hate that. Maybe that'll send a message. But the thing with a guy like Rendon is if, let's just say Ron Washington benches him because, he's getting the inclination that he doesn't want to play. So instead he puts a guy like Luis Rengifo in at third base. Do you think a guy like Rendon cares whether he's batting 9th or if he's on the bench or if he's hurt? Do you think he's honestly going to care, in your opinion?
If we not knowing what or now knowing what we know about Rendon, his body language from last year, I don't know in the 10 games that he played last year, if you saw his body language, he really doesn't care. I don't think it'll affect him. Going back to when there's a foul ball or something, he just misses and he just turns around and you watch him. I seen bored kids that don't like baseball on the baseball field look more enthusiastic. His throws, I mean, how many errors did he have in limited playing time last year? How many times did he just look like whatever? I mean, going back to it, that Otani thing where he could adapt him, he left him hanging because he's like, I don't respect you. Like Otani said, I don't respect you without saying it. His actions, his body language showed it. And I think the bad body language by Rendon, the fact that his teammates don't respect him, I feel he's just like you said, he's out there for a paycheck and that's it.
Yeah. Well, this guy has said a lot of stuff that just don't sit well with me. But like that was really, really, really the icing on the cake for me. It was, it was just, it was that phrase, the whole, hey, the baseball season is too long. He said, bro, how would you know? How would you know that the baseball season is too? You got to show up, asshole. You got to show up to know that it's too long. And maybe that's what he means. Maybe it's because he's forced to show up on those days where he's wearing his little sweater in the dugout. And maybe that's what it is. He'd rather be home with his kids. You know what? There's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to spend time with your family, your wife, your kids, your husband, your grandparent. It doesn't matter. There's nothing wrong with that. We all want to spend time with our family or friends, right? That's not a hot take. That's not special. That's not exclusive to Rendon. What is special about Rendon is the fact that this cat has the ability to say that the season's too long when he hasn't even played half of it. The guy hasn't even played 200 games as an Angel, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not on Artie's side whatsoever, but in a alternate, DC or not DC, Marvel universe, an alternate universe where the players union wasn't that strong or isn't that strong, and an owner can say, hey man, you haven't put up what you said you would in the contract when we signed the contract. You haven't played enough. I'm going to sue you for damages and money lost that I've had to pay you for no return. If that were possible, I'd be in Team Artie all day. Even if he's still a shit owner in that alternative universe, I'd still be on his side because I'm like, dude, this guy doesn't deserve. He's robbing you in front of everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's blind robbery. And for the record, I just checked. I want to issue a public apology to
Uh-oh.
Mr. Anthony Rendon because I am not afraid of the truth. Anthony Rendon, I was wrong. I said that you haven't played 200 games in your Angels career. I stand corrected. He has played exactly 200. Exactly to the T, 200 episodes. It's been like an episode because it never ends. 200 games out of a potential 648.
So
Technically, one of those was a shortened season. So, I mean, it's probably more like out of what, 580 ish.
well, here's the thing, man. That bet, I'll bring it up again between Steve Elise and Maddie Matt, like my friend. She said, look, $50. And $50 is not a lot of money, but $50 is it's a hilarious bet. Even if they
50 bucks in today's economy? No.
yeah, it's like one combo at McDonald's. But
It's a
but
churro at Disneyland.
yeah. But I'm saying, like, even if they were to bet $1, but basically she bet him because Maddie Matt's like, no, I think Rendon's gonna bust out this year. She's like, $50 says he won't make 81 games. And right when they shook on it, I'm like, that's the easiest $50 you just made.
Ever. Ever.
There's no way, bro.
Do you remember in last year's like what did we call it? Like the preseason episode right before the season starts?
Yes.
You and I had bet $500 or something like that in a money to charity that he wasn't going to finish top 10 in MVP voting. I mean, I don't know what my bet this year is going to be, but maybe it'll be something similar to that. Maybe I won't do MVP because I mean the chances of him doing that are slim to none at this point.
Why don't we do this? You put
Okay.
up 500, I put up 500 if he's comeback player of the year. Goes and we will personally contact him and say, what charity do you want it to go to?
If he so $1,000 to charity.
Yep.
If this guy, okay. I mean, I have to see. I don't. Yeah, you know what? I'll do it. I don't know if I'll be able to do all 500 at that time, but I will do payments and I will prove it. We'll see. Hey, if I can do all 500 at once, I'll do it. $500.
Virtual handshake, $500 for me too.
All right, so there you go. $1,000, Anthony Rendon, to a charity of your choice if you're comeback player of the year. A little ballsy, maybe, but it's not going to happen either way. So
No
you guys
way.
can forget about it.
No,
you guys can forget about it.
he has a better chance of being the hacky sack champion of the world than a comeback player in baseball.
Yeah, you're right about the second word there, the sack.
Oh man. So anything else we got for the fans on this one?
No, let me. So the last question I have for actually, you know what? Hit me with your curveball before I ask you my last question.
I forgot to tell you that. Yeah. So I had a curveball question here for Fernando. This was brought to you by someone outside that they didn't leave their name, but this came from the email. And basically, I wanted to ask you what they wanted me to ask you, which was, if Shohei Otani was 10 years younger and he came to the Angels 10 years ago, around the time that the Angels, either 2013 before they made the 2014 run, do the Angels make it to the World Series that year with minus Pujols but add Otani? That's with Hamilton, the whole lineup that they had, no changes other than Otani being a pitcher and a hitter that year.
Well, okay, how old are we assuming Otani is in this mythical world? Because in 2014, I mean, Otani is like 22.
Well, it said
21.
Give or take his rookie or second year with the Angels.
Okay, so he's like 25-ish, 26-ish.
Yeah.
Okay. And Pujols like doesn't exist in this world. He's not on the Angels.
Yeah, an alternate universe, Pujols is not a part of the Angels, but Otani is.
Okay. Is he pitching?
He's pitching as well.
Okay. I don't think the Angels make the World Series that year still, because I do think they make a deeper playoff run. And by that, I mean, I think they make like the ALCS.
So they jump the Royals.
Well, no, I think they get eliminated by the Royals because the Royals were a very, very good team that year, right? And they proved it the following year by winning the World Series. But it's also going to depend on a couple things, right? Because people forget the Athletics almost knocked out the Royals. The Royals came back in the 2014 wildcard game. And here I was one of those idiots who was cheering for the Royals because I knew we weren't doing well against Oakland. I think most Angels fans were cheering for the Royals that year.
Yeah, I wanted Oakland eliminated too.
Yeah, because Oakland scared me back then.
Yeah.
So with that being said, there's a lot of question marks. Does Garrett Richards still get hurt covering first base? Because that injury changed his entire career.
That changed the season too.
It really did. Because that's really what was the turning point. What does CJ Wilson give you? Is he still, he was a decent player that year. Obviously, Jared Weaver was Jared Weaver. He was still really good back then. Um, yeah, I think they make a deeper playoff run, but I think they probably get eliminated in the ALCS by
Okay.
the Royals still.
And a second little tidbit to that question was, do the Angels still live in mediocrity from 2014 onward with Otani, or do they build around him and the players that they had? Do they have a different outcome, basically?
I think they do because all of a sudden, because if we're talking about Otani's first 2 years, he was still making league minimum back then. And in this world, you don't have Albert Pujols. You're still about to get rid of the Josh Hamilton contract because I think he was technically a free agent after 2016. Because here's the thing: 2015, the Angels missed the playoffs by 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man, because there's so many that's a real deep dive. You really are throwing a curveball at me because think about it like this: do the Angels keep an aging Eric Ibar? Do they trade Howie Kendrick for Andrew Heaney? Because if you trade Andrew Heaney, I think that trade works out better for you because now Andrew Heaney comes up and 2016, 17, 18, through 21. He's not ever expected to be your ace. He's a number 3, number 4 in your rotation. Okay.
Yeah.
Do the Angels feel inclined to get a guy like Andrelton Simmons? Because Andrelton Simmons was a big piece in those 2016 through 2020 Angels. Yeah, they never made the playoffs, but they did make some playoff runs in 16 and 17.
Yeah, and then that also begs the question: do they go out there and get those mediocre pitchers, or do
Yeah,
they?
do you get your Dylan Bundys, your Trevor Cahills, your Matt Harveys? Who knows? I don't think I can answer that question. I really can't. There's too many questions. Like, you need to ask, you need to give me a chain of events, right? Like, okay, well, hey, they don't get Anderson Simmons, they don't get Pujols, they don't get Upton because of that. Because then we're really, really talking about a whole nother situation. It's a good question.
Well, maybe I'm gonna email them back and see what if they can give me some more specifics, and if they
Okay.
do, then we'll go right back to it next show.
Well, word on the street is that we're supposed to start doing daily episodes right around the middle of February. So
Absolutely.
we'll be the top daily distributor of episodes for the Angels.
Well, not
I'm
only
claiming
that.
the title.
Okay, LeBron, but
Yeah.
I think we're gonna have the most content if you think about it with
Oh yeah.
live watch viewings probably like once a month or something like that,
Yep. Yep.
depending on our schedules, 5 days a week plus post game shows, breaking
Couple of
news,
pre-games here and there.
pre games. Yeah, I mean, so if you want Angels content and you been searching for good content, but maybe you just get a morning show, or an overnight podcast, or you get a couple podcasts during the week. I mean, we're going to give you stuff every day. So
Yep.
there you go.
Yep.
So with that being said, this has been another episode of Halos in the Infield. We appreciate you guys listening or watching, and tell a friend. This Angel season is going to be rough, so we're going to be your shoulder to cry on, right?
Hey, absolutely. And you're going to be the one to take those phone calls.
Oh yeah. By the way, there's gonna be a time limit on those suckers. We're not gonna be giving people like
Ooh.
10 minutes anymore.
Hit him with the Jim Rome. I don't like that call. Bubba. Not a very good call.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn to the black and white Heedy. I'm gonna be a bad
There
guy.
you go. Yeah,
Hollywood,
you're going to be a
Hollywood
heel.
Fox.
Yeah, there you go. Hollywood Hogan, Hollywood Fox.
There you go.
You need to think you need to think of your name for the softball tournament. Assuming everything goes off without a hitch and we are able to do it, which we're hopeful.
Yeah.
You got to think of a team name because obviously I'm Team Lone Star. You got to be
Yeah. I don't know.
the Hollywood Foxes.
Yeah, something like that. We'll come up with something. We'll come up with something.
I'm sure we will.
Yep. So for Todd Fox, and
The Lone Star Halo.
catch you on the flip side.
Adios. Viva Los Angelitos.